The Elder Scrolls Oblivion has been remastered very recently, and it's been received very positively by new players and veterans alike. So it's got us thinking, could old versions of Warhammer benefit from the same treatment? I am James Jordan, aka The Bard, and today I am joined by Mr. Norwich Baker.
Hello.
The Spider. And Joe Pointing, Chaos Lord Beard.
The unrelenting horrors
Of shorts, Chaos Lord shorts today.
I've got shorts on today. It's hot out there. Hang on.
Red hot content for you all. Oh, you're gonna
Slap your thigh.
Good grief.
Punch his ticket. A very interesting conversation today. That actually the idea stemmed from outside of the Warhammer sphere. Now, very recently, and to no one's surprise, it was like one of the worst kept secrets in video gaming, but out of nowhere, seemingly, Oblivion Remastered dropped. Like a hot potato, just landed in everyone's laps.
Put me in the Daedric gates.
I mean, I'm very excited to jump back in. It's all very, very exciting. But what it made me think is that everyone was so excited about it because what they promised was that this was going to be exactly like you remembered it with like a fresh coat of paint. It was going to be all look beautiful, but in essence, it was going to have the same silliness and some of the jank and some of the stuff that is kind of showing its age now in the context of modern sensibilities of gaming, but it was like, hey, you can go back, enjoy it in a new, fresh way, and enjoy some of that old school feel. And a little light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, does Warhammer, or 40k in general, need the same kind of thing? Does it need a little remaster or legacy edition, much like World of Warcraft, when they did the first. They stripped back all the expansions and re-released the first game. And they were like, you can jump back in kind of how it started before it's evolved. Would Warhammer benefit from the same thing? Like greatest hits of all the old editions, and you can use your firstborn. You can use your new models if you want to, but it's like a remastered version of the game.
Well, here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy
Question.
thing. Like, which version do you pick?
This is true.
And what is the definitive version?
I know, right? Well, this is what's exciting about it, because
You can't do multiple editions.
Yeah, you can't,
It
right?
becomes too messy, too complicated. What do I play? Legacy version, second version?
Yeah.
It becomes ridiculous, doesn't it? But you could do, in theory, a legacy edition. I don't know what you'd call it. You want to call it remastered, do you?
Maybe, because that's quite like.
It makes it sound better than the current edition.
It does though, doesn't
There's
it?
master in it.
Does say, and re means redone. I think something like legacy would be
Retro edition. I don't know.
retro, like, because I think often one of the things we've found for the last few editions, it's becoming more endemic, I think, now because of all these amazing models coming out.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lie, the new Grimnar that has just been announced is quite a bit better than the old one.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that.
Yeah.
The new
Talk about a
Dante.
remaster.
Yeah, the new Dante, quite a bit better than the old one.
Yeah.
But remember, like,
There's
when
nothing on Grimnar, though, is
He's
there?
nothing on Grimnar. Look, I'm feeling
I'm
very
a
jealous.
Blood Angel fan.
I'm very jealous. Look at me, green with envy.
Blood Angel release, and what's that Drake gif? That
Yeah,
meme?
yeah.
Is that the
Yeah, that. Yeah, look, it's.
Space Force release? Oh my god!
Well, I think it was Halo when they did the remaster of the first Halo. There was an option to toggle between visual modes. So you can see what the old game looked like, and see what the new game looked like.
Yeah.
I'm imagining in this Legacy Edition, you could just pick and choose what models you want to do because Firstborn are kind of just getting hacked down at the knees at the moment.
So in Bolt Gun, the video
Yeah.
game, you can choose to have the graphics in like full-on block,
pixels.
32-bit sort of style, or you can have it then a bit, a little bit better blended.
softer,
You can up the graphics, which is quite cool. And this is like a little nod to playing it as an old school retro, 32-bit Doom-esque shooter. I'm going to give you a little bit more nice, less pixelation now. That said, I feel like if you wanted to do whatever you call it, this legacy edition, probably the things that we should discuss is what would go in that.
Yes.
What best rules from all of the different editions would we want in there? And then second, how would you, it's my opinion, so I'm going to throw this out there right now, I'm going to put it on the table for you to read. What you have is the old school style for this edition of the old codex of the old Dark Millennium War Gear book, the Dark Millennium. I forget what they called it. I think they called it. It was like a codex, but armies. They had all of the armies in one army list.
Yes.
So a bit like the Legacy book that they've got for Old World now for all of the Legacy armies. So you have one tome with all of the different retro army lists in it, which you can then build from your armies from. And then of course they had like a psychic powers thing as well, which is really cool. So 3 separate books.
Yeah.
Really annoying. I can't remember what those names are.
What of the 3 separate books?
Yeah. Basically, the second edition Dark Millennium supplements, and the second edition. Actually, the books were in the core book, the core box.
Well, this is the question. Would the right thing to do is go right back to the start? Do you go with? I know Rogue Trader was sort of a very different thing in a way, but
That was very different.
Whereas second edition was kind of the first proper
Yeah.
Warhammer 40,000.
Yes.
And I think the crux of the issue is that graphics, quote unquote, like new models are one thing. And I think that's a way of definitely getting a new audience in. Because even Fletcher is like, with Old World or some of the older models, he's like, they're really derpy, not into them at all.
Yeah.
But when you get the new models, he's really excited to use those models.
Yeah.
But would he really enjoy some of the janky silliness of second edition? Maybe. And maybe that's how Legacy would pitch itself.
I quite like the idea of doing a new modern version of that second edition box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my mind, you'd have the artists that were doing the 9th edition artwork. I think one of the guys that did it's called Phil Moss, I think. And you could recreate that iconic box art with the modern, like the very grimdark art style they were going for in 9th and 10th. They've done a few more modern, like shiny ones as well, but like the real, like the Chaos Space Marines Codex cover, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you do that on the cover, and then you redo the models that were in that box,
Agreed.
but modernified.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I
Really
think,
interesting.
Well, I think if you're deliberate, the thing is you're sort of hitting, there is like a nostalgia wave that's happening.
There
at the moment
is.
anyway.
Big time.
So if you're
Yeah.
hitting that retro, deliberately hitting that retro thing, but I think from a gaming point of view, you're also acknowledging all of the veteran players. Again, I'll bring up the old world Warhammer Fantasy players that have their legacy, book. They're not technically making a lot of those models anymore, but what they're doing now is providing a list, an army list, a way for you to use those old models. And if you can make this edition about allowing people to use their Legends units or their older, smaller scale units, which have ultimately all been replaced with modern miniatures, that could be the way to do it. So basically, yes, all of your firstborn would be in. All of your, older orcs and options would be in. All of the old Tyrannid models would be in. I don't think it should prohibit you from using a new model, using the old rules. But, as you're seeing with like a lot of people using Sigmar models to represent some of the legacy stuff for Old World now. But it's a way for you to play in a valid way all of your old vintage collection, or play with a deliberately sort of vintage retro rule set. I mean, for me, War Gear cards, psychic power cards, templates.
Templates, baby.
Listen, scatter dice.
Oh!
And I suppose, like, if you compare
And war games were war games!
if you compare second edition in terms of like your army size to modern 40k, it would end up being a skirmish game, wouldn't it? But I think that would be quite a nice selling point because it is just a smaller, quicker game. Now, I didn't play second edition, or I certainly didn't do it with any of the actual rules. But did you do second?
So I did start in second, and and when I say I started in second, like I was. By the end of it, when they've released third edition, I was an expert.
You were.
I mean, I knew every army. It was like, it was one of the moments where I was peak 40k. I had nothing else to do in my life. I was still really a child. So yes, that was one of my editions where I was like fully knowledgeable on everything.
So would you?
I can't remember the names of the 3 books.
Would you describe it as a straightforward game? So if you took those rules now and reprinted them, would it be a horrible game to play?
Well, I mean, if you ask Ed, he thinks it's peak 40k. And it, in a way, It is. So look, there were lots of things that were broken about it. It was very easy to break.
Yeah.
One of the classic strategies was you take like a cheap deliverable unit, like a Swooping Hawk Exarch. He was like 50 points, as I recall, and you'd give him a Vortex Grenade, which was like one of the most expensive war gears, which was also like 50 points. And basically, Deep Strike back then, you could put them anywhere you wanted.
Right.
With his special wings, and so he would just appear, and the Vortex Grenade is the single most destructive thing in the game. Yeah. He was an Exarch, so he had a really high ballistic skill. He hit on 2s, basically. Yeah. And when that thing hit you, you were gone.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what you were gone.
Was that a template?
Yeah.
Right.
So it had a special Vortex template.
Nice.
It was a smaller template, but you're dead.
Yeah.
So, things like that, were just ridiculous. But that said, I think that you could see, for me, isn't Heresy a little bit like that? Well, isn't the Heresy kind of like the retro 40k? I mean, they're using a 7th edition rule set, right? But they've taken some things from earlier editions and sort of mixed it in. But you've got your templates. Does Heresy still have a scattered eye? I'm pretty sure it does.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure it does.
Pretty sure it does.
I've not played the current edition.
Definitely got templates and stuff, isn't it?
It's got templates, 100%. But anyway, look, that said, I wonder if you don't use the 2nd edition rules as they are, but you take the 2nd edition rules and take some of the great things that worked from some of the more modern editions and streamline it a little bit, but still make sure you have that retro feel.
Yes.
And I actually feel like they could do that with the Old World as well. Like I feel, because Old World is also like a sort of an 7th edition best hits of Warhammer Fantasy. But I feel like they could take that a little bit further and take out some of the unnecessary gumph, because some of it is just unnecessary, to make the game actually better, in my opinion. So you can sort of modernize it, but still present it as a retro thing. That's how I would do it. That's just my hot take.
Well, I would agree, because I think one of the things with Old World is just navigating that book is a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Whereas it's that kind of thing, if it's almost, with something like a remaster, is part of me is that as much as that Vortex Grenade thing sounds bonkers, there's also a charm in like how bonkers that is.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think maybe
sometimes you'd roll a 1 and your whole tactics failed.
Yeah,
you miss with the Vortex Grenade and it scatters back on you.
and part of me thinks, because it would be smaller inherently, a 2nd edition. I think if you added quality of life to it, like same with the Old World, if you just had a digital compendium that came with the book, that when it says like, hand weapons, you could tap on it and it shows you what a hand weapon is. That would make it so much easier. And that's a very modern thing that didn't exist back then, but is just like a quality of life thing. Like, I think for you Elder Scrolls fans, one of the things people were saying in Oblivion, the first thing they wanted to check was if they'd changed spellcrafting. When you can make your own spells. And most people, it's designed to be like, you make fireballs and cool stuff. But most people just use the fear spell, but imbued it with a speed spell. So you can make everyone want to run away from you at 400 times speed. So you can just cast it in towns, and the whole town goes, and just flees.
Scatter.
And it's stupid, and it breaks the immersion of the game, but really funny. And it's that kind of thing, is with a remaster, what they've done is you could have just built it from the ground up to be like, here's the aesthetic, but it's a modern game underneath. And I think what has proven very popular with this is that some people are going to be like, it's a bit broken though, isn't it? It's like,
Today's video is brought to you thanks to the support from our on-demand members. It's due to their amazing support that we're able to produce shows just like this one. As well as supporting the channel, our members get access to at least 2 additional battle reports every week, as well as full codex reviews, painting tutorials, our weekly on-demand talk show, all of our competitive 40k league games, and so much more. And we add to our library of content every single week. You can join our on-demand community today by downloading our app or heading to the website. And right now we have an introductory offer for new customers, so there's never been a better time to join on demand. Thanks for watching. Let's get back to the show.
Because I think you're right with Heresy, it is a greatest hits, but it's designed to be still a balanced playable game.
Although it's not.
Even though it's not, right? Same with the current 40k, is ultimately it's a very difficult to balance 40k. But the intention is to try and make it balanced. And I think some of the things people get upset about, like we were even discussing this with the World Eaters game, is that I know Berserkers are now their battle line, so have kind of been pulled back to feel like a battle line unit. But is there a world in which you kind of want Berserkers just to feel like Berserkers.
Well, they should, yeah.
And could this legacy kind of be like, if something does get Legends, it's like, well, that's where it goes out to like retire. It's like it's greener pastures of like, that's where your Democarons are and your mad units of just sort of, this is...
But wouldn't it be cool though that you've got this legend, because they've acknowledged, they make these Legends data sheets. It would be really cool to go, and here are the rules for the retro game, whatever you call it, you know, so that you can carry on playing it in that mode. I think there's something about it which is really, really cool, and it would hit all of the nostalgia.
Really would.
One thing I was thinking though is that the reason I feel quite strongly actually that you have to modernize the retro rules a little bit is the longevity of the game. If you want people to carry on playing it, is you can't just cater to the old retro crowd because eventually the old retro crowd will stop playing. You need to try and get new blood interested in playing the sort of the old school game or this different version of the game, which is more wacky. And weirdly, it might actually sort of hit you know, the people, the more casual hobbyists, because the thing is in this great strive that they've had with all these editions now to hit balance, and they've never successfully hit the balance ever. 10th edition is arguably the most balanced it's ever been.
Best it's been,
you know, if you go by these win rates and all these statistics that come out of places, but at the same time, it's not balanced, and it will never truly be balanced because it's too big and too complex, and they always get the rules wrong when they release it, and then that's why the pages aren't worth the. You know, so you know, it's one of those things that I think people are now starting to realise. Well, if you can't ever really get it balanced, I just want it to be a really cool, quirky, different war game, you know, where these crazy things do happen, and those are the things you remember when you're playing a game, right? And this remastered version could be the place where they acknowledge this is where it is. It gets crazy here.
Come on in, the water's boiling. Can't feel my legs.
It would be nice to have a game where you can experience how things are described in like the Heresy novels and the books, where Berserkers are just cutting through other Space Marines because they can, and like tearing someone's head off because they can. It would be fun to, I mean, it would be a quick game probably, but it would be fun. That's okay. It'd be something a bit different, wouldn't it?
Would it be fun? Exactly. And if it's fun, then it's succeeding. You know, games are supposed to be games, so i.e. fun.
This is the beauty as well, is that it wouldn't take anything away from the current edition, because that is where they're all geared up to. This certainly wouldn't be in place of it. It'd be like you have Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Horus Heresy, Old World, Legacy.
It's just ways to play, isn't it? Like there's just different ways of using your miniatures collection.
And also, they're no longer, if you have this huge collection of, you know, firstborn Space Marines, and you kind of are feeling the cold chill of death creeping over your shoulder, you'd be like, well, I can always use them in Legacy. I don't have to ever worry about anything getting taken out of the game.
You would get people like, because the aesthetic's different as well, you would get people like painting in that aesthetic, you know, like the whole Goblin green base thing which goes around Instagram every now and then. You know, that you'll get people going, well, this is my retro collection, you know.
Exactly.
And that's cool. That's really cool. Like what's the name of the Grimdark Wartime group on Instagram, which it's a certain aesthetic that they...
Oh, like the 28 mag stuff? Or is that...
Yeah, that's part of it, but no, this is like, they're really, it's kind of famous. There's a whole bunch of them. They're all...
28?
No. They do a lot of wartime stuff in this aesthetic.
Oh, Iron Slate?
Yeah, Iron Slate. Yeah, that's it. That would be the place for them for all of their stuff. And in a weird way, again, I'll reference Old World, like, there's precedent here where GW are now selling entire armies made up of old miniatures made in sometimes the 90s, and people are buying them. That said, it's such a weird thing, isn't it? Because now they release Cathay, and you're like, oh, look at what they can do with the modern stuff, but it's kind of done in the retro aesthetic still, but it's modernized. I just want them to do that with all the Old World armies.
Patent pending for my 5% James Workshop, but if you want to print free money, just every model you've ever produced could be buyable and viable in this game mode. Anything you've ever made, you just be like, if you want to have a big Keeper of Secrets, little Keeper of Secrets, something from old editions, and you can sell them all.
Well,
all of them.
Imagine the retro tactical, the classic tactical squad actually redone. Rather than them just really, let's say they redo it.
Yeah, intentionally, right?
Yeah, intentionally. But in that style of that aesthetic, the scale will be slightly smaller, you know, or whatever, however you want to do it, because there's been massive scale creep over the years. I think it would be really interesting. I mean, I would probably play it.
But yeah,
you know,
because you could advertise it just like they do with a video game. You could have someone, you know, with the old red tape measure moving across the old Space Marine, and then halfway through the transition, bam, it's like this brand new tactical Marine. And you could make them look and feel as impressive as the current model range, but it has a new lick of paint almost. It's that box, all the orcs are done new, all that. You could still have like that Blood Angel with the flames on his legs.
100%, yeah. And you'd have the orcs with their funny little hats.
Stature and an amazing model.
Yeah.
Then also, you just have in the rulebook, if you do have the original models, you can totally use them.
Yeah.
Like, go crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you just make base sizes less completely impactful or completely important to that game mode, and you can play around with it. But I think it's such an easy win, in a way.
Yeah.
And it just needs quality of life changes, then rebuilding the game from the ground up. I think it'd be so interesting.
It'd be really cool.
So what would you? I mean, you've not played as many editions.
No, yeah, this is the thing. I look back on these with fondness for quite how ridiculous it was.
Yeah. Is there anything that you two would want brought back in? Like if you were to do it, like what would you pick? What was it you would want?
What I really want, and this is something you can pick from almost any edition, is just a fun way of building lists again.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Just
that
like picking war gear, even if it is a vortex grenade or something silly like that.
Yeah.
I'd love the ability to like make a custom character to be my warlord,
Yes.
rather than being like, he's my warlord because he has to be.
Yeah.
Be like, he's my warlord because I've given him this relic chainsword and he's got some amulet from the warp and
100%. Like
magic shoes.
my favorite thing about Old World is spending 400 points on like trinkets to give to your guy.
It's great
fun.
kitting out my characters. It was so good.
Not just why have you taken this guy? Well, he gives +1 to hit to the entire army. Like, that's less fun.
That's one of my favorite things about Old World. You completely like nukify your characters. You give them some ancient sword and the Ruby Ring of Ruin. Viable for
Runefang.
Well, the heart of the games back then, originally coming from really like a role-playing, an RPG skirmish game, was that the characters were celebrated being heroes. It's weird now, I feel like in 10th edition, whilst obviously characters are really good, I'm not saying characters aren't good, and characters are required, and they're usually like there to buff units. That's the game design they've gone for. And I get all of that. But the characters feel very copy-paste, same. Every character. Now, of course, there's a hilarious irony in this, is that back then when you started playing any of the older editions really well, you would see characters with the exact same loadouts because that was the optimum one. But that's actually not the point, and you're missing the point. If there were lots of other people that did also take other stuff or would have, you know, just do something quirky, and people are like, oh, that's an interesting combo. And then they'll do a little strategy this way, and you're like, oh, that's, you would see more variety. And the great concept of having that generic war gear list in a single book which anyone can use, you know, and that's what you've got with Old World. You've got your standard, your common arcane items, haven't you? And then your specific faction arcane items. And then you can release supplements. That's what Dark Millennium was. It was a huge supplement of, now here's 50 extra war gear cards.
So fun.
Here's a million different psychic powers, one for each different faction type. Powers of the hive minds, you know, it was really, really cool. That for me is peak wargaming. And I think actually, you know, the sort of the evolution of it into some sort of pseudo sport is largely missing the point of why you've probably started collecting toy soldiers in the first place.
Also, it's a game built around, its core mechanic is luck. It's not like this is what makes me laugh about a lot of modern 40k is the way you build your army is to try and reduce as much luck as possible from what you're
making
doing.
your own luck.
You want to go from, what does my guy normally hit on, a 4? What have I made him hit on? A -1. Because, do you know what I mean? Like, even, it's ridiculous that so many armies can get to a basically a 2 to hit, at which point rolling a 1 feels like, oh man. Whereas something like overcharging, destroying a whole model, or explosions, what I would love to see is what you guys used to say with deep striking. The deep strike mishap table is brilliant. You can spend ages planning out this perfect deep strike, then what happens? Roll the wrong dice, it's got me on the other side of the map. That for me is then you both laugh at the table because what are the chances? That creates such an interesting social enjoyment rather than being like, oh, I think actually technically it's 8.9 inches, so I can just about square. And that, you know, it's a social contract. Not everyone's like that, of course. But I think there's something so funny about that shared joy of when something hilarious happens. And you can just be like, I'll roll it again, but wow, that just happened.
So the most fun I've had playing 40k ever, in all of the decades at this point of playing 40k, was obviously second edition, because there is a nostalgia there. You know, I look back and objectively look at a lot of the rules and go, this it's too complicated. Yeah. It's not that it wasn't fun, it's too complicated, not necessary. We could have had the same amount of fun by removing a lot of the complication. That said, still one of the most fun times I've ever had played 40k. The second time was deep striking with my old Grey Knights army. I used to deep strike the entire army.
That's cool.
And Teleport Strike Force it was called, and you'd have to roll a scatter dice. You know, you've got a 33% chance of rolling a hit, you know, and I was all in. It was amazing fun. Sometimes it would go catastrophically wrong, but that was the risk and the rewards of this old school Alpha Strike army. And then back when I was playing first Drukhari, where everything was reducing range with Night Shields, and it was like bolters would blow up my Venoms. That was fine. It was all about being really cagey. And there were times you get absolutely massacred as a Drukhari player, and there would be times where you'd pull the Alpha Strike off, but you had to really think about it. But all of those things felt very fluffy and lore-driven, and you know, the warp and deep striking, if you're coming from a teleportarium, should be risky. There are inherent dangers to all of this, and it felt like things like, you know, losing the old miscast tables. You know, perils of the war. You know, it just slowly got diluted to, oh, now you take a couple of mortal wounds if you roll a 1 to, like, actually it's just a shooting attack.
It just makes it feel not as important.
Might be hazardous. Okay.
Yeah, you lose the excitement of risk, and you lose the excitement of the reward, because you're just doing an action. Like you're activating a unit to do something, and it's going to happen. There's no sort of like, oh, is this actually going to work? Was this a good idea? Can I learn from this next time? It's just sort of like press button to do thing. Right. You know, I feel like an injection of soul and a bit of excitement where you just don't really know what's going to happen would really be fun to have again.
100%. I mean, you know, like the thing is that it helps build the world and the lore. Like, so for example, like Psychic, the Maelstrom, the Warp is like the key sort of existential threat in the universe. Back in the day, with the second edition Dark Millennium, you'd have these warp cards that you would draw. That would tell you sort of how many warp charge points you could use, or maybe you'd get an ultimate force card. And Psychers could be very dangerous to your opponent and to yourself. And that immediately is telling a story. That, you know, you can bring some Psychers, but, you know, see what happens, you know. And I feel like, you know, they could modernize it if you don't want to print cards, GW, by having psychic dice pools. I'll spend this many points, but this many dice, but the more dice that I spend, the more dangerous it could potentially be if it goes wrong. Like, it's not even hard game design, but it helps tell the amazing, it gives you the immersion.
And I think
the story.
That's the thing, is like they can be really smart now. They have all this access to modern technologies in a way of helping you navigate that game. So you can still have like the second edition box with all of its like the measuring sticks and all the various templates and stuff, the little cardboard dreadnoughts. You could do all of that if you wanted to really go for the nostalgia feel, but like you say, have the new art and everything. But then you could also just have an app a little download code in the box. You download it, here's all the rules, it's all indexed, it's really easy to navigate. Like, you can roll a dice on that and it scatters through your warp cards. Like, you could use all this modern technology to just make quality of life changes to what is intrinsically just an old school fun time. I think it'd be great. And it doesn't take anything then away from if you do want a more balanced, quote unquote, but more sort of like, you know, less random, more precise game that you can play at a sort of bleeding edge competitive level, then that is still what the modern game can be used as. You can still play a narrative, you can still play it normally, but it's just legacy. Like crazy mode.
And here's the thing, like, I love a good tournament. I'm not saying, oh, it shouldn't be played competitively. I think it should be played exactly how you want to play it. So if you want to play it competitively, that's completely valid. But there is a sterility that comes with building a game to only be that takes away, I think, from the root and the heart of what the game is, which is, you know, it's not chess. It's not balanced. And therefore, if you want your toy soldiers, you want to paint them, and you want some of that nostalgia, which is, I think that's probably why the nostalgia's maybe hitting harder than ever at the moment because the game is advancing so quickly and everything gets updated so quickly, and they are trying to make, you have to give it to them, an objective effort to balance it. They get it wrong all the time, especially it's frustrating when a new book's released and it's immediately broken. But, they do, I come from times where you wait 5 years for a book to be changed, to even get an FAQ. So they are doing it faster than they've ever done before. That said, I feel like people are like pining for that. Well, I remember the time where,
do you know what's crazy? And I was thinking this the other day, like, I think it's amazing that the entertainment mediums and gaming, both on the tabletop and digitally across the board, even film and media, right, has come so far. Like, it's the huge advancements that have happened. But I think there is this huge nostalgia trip, because sometimes playing any video game, you play it for like 10 minutes, and then when you start playing online with other people, unless that is your like career profession, you just get absolutely smacked about because it's like you've got to know the meta, you've got to know the right loadouts. Whereas I think Revenge of the Sith has its 20th anniversary launch in cinemas right now. You can play Elder Scrolls Oblivion again. Spyro, Resident Evil 4, Crash Bandicoot are all being re-released. Silent Hill 2. All of these games that came out back in the day have all been re-released that don't have all the modern microtransactions. There's no loot boxes. It's like, this is a game that came out in 2002 or 2006 that they're just like, we are going to make it look really nice because those are the advancements everyone can agree that's awesome. And I think the irony is a lot of these things, when you play it remastered, or even this Legacy Edition, if you would play it with the new models, I reckon would feel just like it did, because that's how it looked in your head.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, those little Space Marines looks like the modern Space Marines, because you did all the work in your head, and it's just another way of advancing that even further. And I think you can see it across the board. I think there's a hunger for that kind of nostalgia trip of just being like, this is just fun. Let's make it a fun time.
I think that would be a really smart way of them introducing a more narrative focused game again. Because I feel like the narrative, which is Crusade at the moment, has a segmentation problem. It's too complicated. Like there's too much to do, and people have less and less time. So I think just being able to play a quick enough game, which is really fun, a bit wacky, and the things your miniatures do what they are presented as doing in the writing, would be really fun.
Really fun.
Make it a crazy game. Allow my Demon Prince, allow my Chaos Sword to become a Demon Prince, or maybe a Spawn on 2d6.
And I think
risk and reward is exciting.
And it would allow people to, because obviously Heresy, if you're not into Space Marines, you've not really got that many options. But you could, I know granted Tau weren't around in 2nd edition, but imagine them being like, cool, how do we retroify old school faction? It would be really fun to see, like, if you are a collector of a more modern faction, how does that translate? Like, there's so much scope for them to do some really fun and exciting things that I feel like with like the announcement of Cathay for Old World, seems like there may be trying a bit more now, being like kind of taking a punt on older things. To be like, we didn't quite get it right first time around. We've learned a lot. We've produced some amazing stuff since. Let's try this again with some modern sense speed. So maybe we will see like a Legacy Warhammer 40,000.
I don't know. It's a big wish list, isn't it? I mean, who knows? Maybe. I mean, but one thing which is interesting is that, for them to then produce the book on the Legacy factions in Old World sort of indicates to me that, they've actually invested money in selling that pamphlet now. That's an acknowledgement, okay, a lot of you are actually playing these Legacy factions, which we sort of wrote off in a PDF. So here's some printed material, but if you buy that, okay, fine. I wonder if, that might be the start of bringing back some of the
stuff will start bubbling up, I think, won't it?
And I think now that I've seen Cathay, I reckon they'll do Kislev as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I think they'll do them all. The crazy thing with Cathay is that technically is the final army for Old World. So they're all done now. And that's quick. They've done that very, very quickly. If an edition lasts about 3 years, we're only a year and a half in.
Although the specialist games do last longer, don't they?
Sometimes, I think, weirdly, this new cycle seems to be speeding up, so...
Because what they're going to do for the next year and a half, if it is only 3 years, what else have they got to release for Old World at this point?
Mate, there's
crazy time!
Crazy!
If they start redoing some of the old range as well.
Put the old Blood Knights back in. Whoa. Whoa.
But yeah, that
Anyway.
rule book needs it's bulked. It needs to shred now.
Yeah, it
That
does.
is it needs a bit of a slim down.
It needs to get into its cutting phase.
I just like to be
But
able
not
to
too
tap on the
much.
thing and know what it does. I don't mind all the rules. I'm just happy to be like, okay, thrusting spears.
Yeah.
Well,
But Heresy and Old World, because I love the idea of Heresy. I'm very tempted to do.
Oh,
Heresy
I'm very
myself.
tempted by Heresy.
I've got a prototype list which a buddy has made for me. It's very exciting.
the technology exists. Old World Builder.
Yeah, but
yes.
but
Old
you
World
need
Builder.
Why doesn't GW have a proper? Its
I
own-
don't know.
Like,
Old
this is
World Builder.
Why can't I access my books in my app for Warhammer 40,000?
Old World
Lawrence?
Builder is brilliant. It's on a web browser. You can get it on any device.
It is great.
Yeah.
Everything's got a hyperlink,
really
so
is
you
good.
can tap on any rule, any weapon. It tells you what it does.
It's so good. Yeah.
And I
But
think-
Games Workshop are like, no, you have to read a book. Caveman, read a book like a human.
Don't understand. And I think Heresy uses New Recruit or something. One of you guys, Heresy player. Can
The fact that both of them have their own separate fan-made sort of encyclopedias is maddening, really, isn't it? But that's a conversation maybe for another time.
But that's the thing. Like, even if they don't even have to, if they're worried about the cost of developing an app for iOS and Android, which, you know, as we have our own app, I understand there are costs involved in that. You can just make it a web app, which is what you know, and that's a very cheap endeavor and
Works
will then run
across
itself.
all operating systems.
Yeah. We'll just do it on our mobile browser. Just give us something.
Help,
Anything.
please. But what an interesting conversation.
Yes,
I feel
it was.
like I feel all giddy. I want to go see Revenge of the Sith. I want to play my game from 2006. I want to play 2nd edition Warhammer.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what
I want the retro edition now.
Yeah, I
All
do.
you've
Fun.
done is left me going, well, where is
Got you
it?
excited.
I'll buy that box. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
I'll
I want
buy
that.
it.
The amount of people that have remade that Blood Angels captain over time.
Yeah. It's
Amazing.
classic.
Yeah.
It's absolute classic.
Make it happen, James Workshop, and give me my 5%. Anyway, until next time, I've been James Jordan. I've been joined by Mr. Lawrence Baker, the Spider. I'm
Hello.
joined by Joe Pointing, Chaos Lord Shorts.
Thank you. One more time.
Yeah, go on then. That's what the people are here to see. We have been Tabletop Tactics. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.